Most people think speaking is about words, but it's not. Speaking is about power. The power to shape emotion. The power to unlock belief. The power to take what's invisible in your mind and make it undeniable in theirs. Speaking is not just a skill. It's a superpower. And if you master it, you don't just communicate, you command. Not through volume, not through pressure, but through presence. Because the truth is, people don't remember what you say. They remember how you made them feel. And when you master speaking, you learn how to control that feeling. You learn to speak in a way that makes people lean in, not scroll past. You speak in a way that stops time, that stills the room, that shakes the soul. Not with hype, but with truth. Not with noise, but with clarity. Not with tricks, but with resonance. And the first thing you must learn is that your voice doesn't come from your throat. It comes from your conviction. You don't need to sound like someone else. You don't need perfect grammar, perfect tone, perfect cadence. You need alignment. When your words match your energy, when your heart is behind your message, when your belief is louder than your fear, you become unstoppable. Because great speaking isn't about performance. It's about alignment. It's not about sounding smart. It's about sounding real. And when you sound real, people feel you. They don't just hear your message, they recognize themselves in it. And that's when everything changes. That's when you stop talking at people and start talking into them. Speaking is not about information, it's about transformation. You're not here to impress, you're here to impact. To speak in a way that changes something inside the person listening. To speak in a way that makes someone say, I can't go back to who I was before I heard that. And to do that, you must speak with intention. You must speak from the center of your truth. Not just what's polished, not just what's practiced, but what's real. Speak from your scars, not your script. Speak from your experience, not your ego. Speak from the pain you've lived through, the wisdom you've fought for, the lessons you've bled to learn. That's the voice people will follow. That's the voice that changes rooms. And once you understand that power doesn't live in the words alone, it lives in the energy behind them, you begin to speak differently. You stop chasing perfection and start channeling presence. You stop rehearsing to be impressive and start grounding yourself to be impactful. Because your voice doesn't have to be loud to be felt. It has to be true. That's what shakes people. That's what makes them stop scrolling. That's what cuts through a world full of noise and lands straight in the chest. Great speakers are not remembered because they said what everyone else said. They're remembered because they meant it. Because you could feel their story in their silence. Because their pauses had weight. Because their breath carried belief. Because their delivery didn't beg for attention, it commanded respect. And that's your next shift. Your voice carries your identity. You cannot master speaking until you first master you. Because people don't just hear your words, they feel your alignment. If you doubt yourself, your voice will tremble. If you shrink your truth, your voice will stutter. But when you stand in who you are, when you own your value, your vision, your voice, suddenly every word you say starts to land with power. Confidence doesn't come from what you know. It comes from what you've integrated, from what you've lived. Confidence is the echo of alignment. The voice that says, this message isn't theory, this is who I am. And when your speaking reflects that, you no longer have to push to be heard. People lean in because they can't ignore what feels real. Let's talk rhythm. Because how you deliver is as important as what you deliver. Speaking is music. It has tone, pace, breath, beat. A great speaker doesn't just talk, they compose. They understand tension and release. They use silence like punctuation. They don't rush to fill space. They let the message breathe. Because silence, when used well, doesn't lose attention, it deepens it. Your job is not to pour out everything you know. Your job is to deliver one truth so clearly, so cleanly, so confidently that it plants itself in the heart of the listener and takes root. That's how impact happens. Not through volume, not through speed, through precision. You don't need to speak faster, you need to speak truer. You don't need to sound smarter. You need to sound clearer. You don't need more words. You need more weight behind the ones you already have. That's how you master your speaking. That's how you turn your voice from a tool into a force. Because the greatest speakers are not the ones who speak the most, they are the ones who feel the deepest and dare to let others feel it too. If your words are polished but your soul is guarded, you'll be heard but never remembered. You'll be acknowledged but never felt. But when you speak with vulnerability, raw, honest, human, you don't just connect, you create trust. And in speaking, trust is everything. It's what opens hearts. It's what drops walls. It's what turns a message into a moment someone remembers forever. So speak from your wounds, not just your wins. Speak from the nights you almost gave up. Speak from the fears you outgrew. Speak from the loneliness you sat in when no one clapped and no one called and you still chose to rise. People don't follow perfection. They follow realness. And when you bring your whole self to the mic, not just your highlight reel, people feel safe to do the same in their lives. And that's where your influence expands. When your voice becomes more than words, it becomes permission. Permission to hope, permission to change, permission to be seen. And the key to that? Storytelling. Story is the language of the heart. Facts inform the mind, but stories move the soul. The brain may forget your steps and your strategies, but it will never forget how your story made someone feel. That one moment of honesty, of pain, of truth, of laughter. That's what lingers. That's what stays. That's what spreads. So tell your stories. Not for applause, but for connection. Tell them not to shine, but to serve. The stumbles, the doubts, the small victories, the turning points. Make people see the movie in their mind, not just hear the bullet points of your success. Because when someone can see themselves in your struggle, they trust your guidance. They don't just listen to you, they follow you. But it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Your emotional range is your greatest asset. Too many speakers sound like robots, flat, rehearsed, soulless. But you are not here to recite. You are here to resonate. Use your voice like a symphony, not for drama, but for depth. Let your passion rise. Let your truth drop. Let your tone match the moment. Speak from fire when fire is needed. Speak from stillness when stillness is called for. Because your voice can punch like thunder or whisper like prayer, and both can be unforgettable when they come from truth. And here's what you must understand. People don't follow the most polished speaker. They follow the most honest one, the most present one, the most grounded one, the one who stands in front of the room or the camera or the world and does not flinch, not because they know everything, but because they've lived what they speak. That's the voice the world is starving for. Then listen carefully, because this is where it all converges. This is where speaking becomes more than a skill. It becomes your signature, your fingerprint on every room you enter, your echo in every life you touch. You see, most people speak to be remembered, but the masters, they speak to remind people of who they are, of what they forgot, of the power that's been buried beneath fear and silence. Your job is not just to share information, your job is to awaken something inside them that was asleep. Your words are not decoration, they are activation. And if you want your voice to live beyond the moment, beyond the platform, beyond the applause, then speak from a place deeper than performance. Speak from purpose. Because when you speak with purpose, you don't need to sell, you don't need to shout, you don't need to convince. Your presence becomes permission. And people follow that. Not because you asked, but because they felt called. And that's what true speaking does. It calls people forward. Out of fear, out of stagnation, out of mediocrity, into motion, into clarity, into transformation. That's what your voice is capable of. And when you realize that, when you finally accept the responsibility of your voice, you will never speak the same again. Every sentence becomes sacred. Every pause becomes powerful. Every story becomes a vessel. And you become the channel. You don't own the message, you carry it, you deliver it, you protect it. Because somewhere, someone is waiting to hear the exact words you've been called to speak. And it might not be perfect, it might not be viral, but it might just be the moment that changes everything for them. So speak with courage, speak with clarity, speak with fire, speak like it matters, because it does. Your voice is not a tool, it's a torch. And the world is full of people walking through darkness, not because they lack talent, but because they've never heard a voice that reminded them of their light. Be that voice. Because when it's all said and done, no one will remember every word you spoke, but they will remember how your words moved them, how they walked away a little taller, a little clearer, a little more alive. And in the end, that is the true mastery of speaking. To use your voice, not just to impress, but to ignite. Not just to be heard, but to be felt. Not just to communicate, but to elevate. That is your gift. That is your power. That is your legacy. Use it well.